Hello, thank you for watching the video. Let's get right to the question. One of these two images is a mole, and the other is skin cancer. If you leave skin cancer untreated, it can spread to your internal organs. If it can't be completely removed by surgery, you may need chemotherapy or radiation therapy, and in the worst case, it can be fatal. Among skin cancers, the most well-known is malignant melanoma, also known as melanoma. If it's found at an early stage, stage 1, the 5-year survival rate is almost 100%. However, if it's discovered at an advanced stage, stage 4, the 5-year survival rate drops to just 10%. So in this video, I'll explain from a doctor's perspective key points for early detection of dangerous skin cancers and ways to lower your risk of developing skin cancer. I'll also explain the answer to the quiz from earlier in the second half, so please watch until the end. First, let me briefly explain the different types of skin cancer. The most common type of skin cancer, seeing is believing. Please take a look at this. This is called basal cell carcinoma. It sounds like a pretty nasty name, doesn't it? However, this cancer is said to occur on the face in about 80% of cases, and it progresses slowly. Since it's easy to notice on the face, it's considered to be relatively low in malignancy and can often be completely removed with surgery. That being said, of course, it's dangerous to just leave it alone. If you notice a new mole appearing on your face or something seems off, when you feel that way, you should definitely see a dermatologist and have them check to make sure it's not skin cancer. And the other type of skin cancer I'll introduce today is the one I mentioned at the beginning, called malignant melanoma, also known as melanoma. It has quite a peculiar name, but actually this cancer is troublesome. It is highly malignant and has one of the highest mortality rates among skin cancers. This is melanoma. If you just leave it alone thinking it's just a mole, it's not uncommon for it to go undetected and lead to death. Melanoma is actually a cancer of moles. By the way, do you know how moles are formed? A mole is formed when cells that produce a brown pigment called melanin are affected by things like ultraviolet rays, genetics, or external stimuli, and they clump together in one spot. That's what a mole is. Melanoma is when the cells called melanocytes, which are the source of moles, become cancerous. In other words, remember that melanoma is cancer of a mole. For example, if melanoma develops on a finger and is detected early, it can be completely treated by amputating the finger, but that's only if things go well. As I explained at the beginning, if it has already metastasized to the internal organs, the mortality rate increases and treatments like radiation therapy or chemotherapy become necessary. And the troublesome thing about melanoma is that it can develop anywhere on the body, but it's especially likely to appear on the soles of the feet. Since there's a high probability, about 1 in 4, that melanoma will develop on the soles of the feet, and because most people don't consciously check the soles of their feet, it's often difficult to detect it early. So please learn the key points for early detection of melanoma that I'll introduce next, and be sure to check your own skin from your fingertips to the soles of your feet for any changes. Now, I'll explain 5 key points for the early detection of melanoma. The ABCDE pattern is well known as an easy-to-understand summary of the characteristics of melanoma. These 5 letters, A, B, C, D, and E, are the initials of the 5 characteristics, making it very easy to understand. The ABCDE signs of melanoma. A stands for asymmetry. In Japanese, this means lack of symmetry, generally when we talk about ordinary moles. For example, don't you all imagine a black, perfectly round, and well-shaped circle? That's right. That's the characteristic of a normal mole, but melanoma is asymmetrical. Please take a look at this. As I explained earlier, melanoma is when melanocyte cells become cancerous, and the cancer cells proliferate, so it grows in a random, asymmetrical, and sometimes irregular shape. That's its characteristic. So, in order to distinguish between a normal mole and melanoma, you should carefully observe whether it is symmetrical and has a clean, round shape. If it doesn't, the possibility of melanoma increases. Take a good look at your own moles to see if their shape is distorted, if there are any dents or wounds at the top, or if you notice anything unusual. If you feel something is wrong, that's the right time to see a dermatologist. The ABCDE signs of melanoma. B stands for border. In Japanese, it means boundary. This is an image of a normal mole. What do you think? The normal skin and the mole are clearly separated, right? That's correct. A mole has a clear border or boundary. And one of the characteristics of melanoma is that the border is unclear or not well defined. The image is that cancer cells proliferate on their own and blend into the skin, so the boundary between normal skin and affected skin becomes ambiguous. That's a characteristic of melanoma, so if it's unclear where the mole starts and ends, you should consider the possibility of melanoma to be higher. For melanoma's ABCDE signs, C stands for color. When you think of the color of a mole, you probably imagine it as just black, as the kanji for mole suggests. However, as you can see in this image, melanoma can have black areas as well as brownish areas, and sometimes there can even be red areas. In other words, having a mix of various colors and variations is a characteristic of melanoma. The ABCDE signs of melanoma, D stands for diameter. Simply put, the larger the diameter or size, the higher the possibility that it could be malignant melanoma. As a general guideline, it is said that mole-like spots with a diameter over 6 millimeters have a higher possibility of being melanoma. Of course, there are plenty of large moles over 6 millimeters, so just because it's over 6 millimeters doesn't necessarily mean it's melanoma. Please remember, this is just a general guideline. The E in the ABCDE signs of malignant melanoma stands for evolve. Simply put, it means whether it's growing or expanding. Please consider this the most important point. Normal moles generally don't change much in size. However, in the case of melanoma, the cancer cells keep multiplying. The shape may change, it may become raised, the color may change, or the borders may become unclear. In other words, the ABCD of the ABCDE signs will start to appear. Please make sure to watch carefully over time to see if there are any changes or if it gets bigger. Compared to a month ago, the size has changed. If you see those kinds of signs, please consider that it's more likely to be melanoma than a mole, so you probably already know the answer to the quiz at the beginning. On the left side, there's a dark mole with clear borders, and on the right side, the borders are unclear, the color is uneven, and it's asymmetrical. This is an image of melanoma. Now let's review what we've covered so far. The ABCDE signs of melanoma. A is asymmetry, meaning the shape is not symmetrical. B is border, meaning the border is unclear and blends into the skin. C is color. It's not just black, but can be brown or have a gradient of colors. D is diameter, which means diameter refers to the size. If the size is over 6 millimeters, consider it as a guideline that the possibility of melanoma increases. And E is evolution. Has there been any change or growth? Are the ABCD characteristics progressing over time, or is the size increasing? Make sure to observe that carefully. And it's said that 1/4 of melanomas develop on the soles of the feet, so it might be a good idea to get into the habit of checking the soles of your feet when you take a bath. So finally, is there any way to avoid getting skin cancer in the first place? How can you lower your risk? Here's the main point. Ultraviolet rays are a major risk factor for most skin cancers. Data shows people sensitive to UV rays who sunburn easily are at higher risk. It's said that white people have more than 10 times the risk of developing melanoma compared to black people. And there is also data showing that using sun protection can lower the risk of cancer. Next, I'll address common sunburn questions I get in the clinic. Are people less prone to sunburn less likely to get skin cancer? Are you less likely to get sunburned in the morning or in the evening? Can you get sunburned even on cloudy days? How many times should you apply sunscreen in a day? I'll be answering those kinds of questions. First of all, there are people who are more likely to get skin cancer. Those are the people whose skin turns bright red when they get sunburned. You probably know someone like that. When they get sunburned, their skin, what happened to it? People whose skin gets that red are actually said to be at higher risk for skin cancer, so it's important to be careful. Please take proper precautions against sunburn, and if you're going to protect yourself from sunburn, the time of day matters. There is less ultraviolet radiation in the morning or evening compared to going out during the middle of the day. So, between the morning and evening, in other words around 10 a.m. and 5 p.m., which time has less ultraviolet radiation? The answer is the evening. It's said that there is relatively less ultraviolet radiation in the evening compared to the morning. If possible, try to avoid activities that are likely to cause sunburn in your daily schedule. By scheduling those activities for the evening or later, you may be able to lower your risk of cancer. Next, here's a common mistake. On cloudy days, people often think that they won't get sunburned, so they don't need to use sunscreen. That's a big mistake. Basically, it's said that the amount of UV rays on a cloudy day is about 80% of what it is on a sunny day. In other words, just having clouds only reduces the amount of sunburn by about 20%, so please make sure to take proper UV protection measures even on cloudy days. Use a parasol, wear gloves, or put on long sleeves. And also, make sure to apply sunscreen. The frequency of applying sunscreen is important as well. It's a big mistake to think that applying sunscreen just once in the morning is enough for the whole day, depending on the type of sunscreen, but basically you should think of sunscreen as something you need to reapply every few hours. So when you're doing activities outdoors, make it a habit to reapply sunscreen every few hours. Lastly, let's review. To prevent skin cancer and reduce your risk, I mentioned that UV protection and measures against ultraviolet rays are important. People with fair skin who turn bright red when they get sunburned are at higher risk. If you're going out, try to go out in the evening rather than in the morning. Even on cloudy days, you shouldn't neglect UV protection. Also, keep in mind that the effect of sunscreen lasts only a few hours at a time. When you're active outdoors for long periods, be sure to reapply sunscreen every few hours. Even in cool places like on top of a mountain, remember that the higher the altitude, the more ultraviolet rays there are. Please make sure to take UV protection seriously, both to reduce your risk of skin cancer and to keep your skin healthy. At YouTube Medical University, we responsibly share videos from a doctor's perspective that will support your health and be useful right away, so you can stay healthy for years to come. In a world overflowing with information, we clearly explain things with data so you won't regret catching the wrong information. I would be truly happy if you could subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. And signs of skin cancer can appear not only on the skin, but also on your nails. What kind of nail signs are highly likely to indicate skin cancer? There's a video in the description, so please check it out if you're interested. And in the comments section, please share your experiences. For example, what happened when you went to the dermatologist? What did they say to you? Please let us know about your experiences in the comments. And if you could rate this video, whether with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, it would be helpful for future reference. Well then, see you in the next video.